So, hello, Mark Austin, and how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Lesley, and your good self.
I am fine, thank you. Very happy to be here. I love doing these interviews. It's something that's become, I really look forward to, because you discover, I'm very curious. In my day, when I was growing up, that was called nosy, but these days they call it curious. It's so much better. But I'm quite nosy. So I really like to hear everything that the artists have to say. So these sessions are particularly about the artist studio. So how it's going to work is we're going to have a chat, and then at the end we'll invite questions from the audience, and we've got some people in the audience. So first of all, could you just give us a bit of background on yourself, Mark? That'd be helpful, I think, for people who don't know you.
That's very kind, Lesley. So yeah, I'll do a quick 30 seconds. So it's my 32nd year in construction. So I do have a consultancy business as well as the art. And I started at the shop floor back in 1991, and I worked my way up, and I was operations director for 5 years. And then latterly I was innovation director for a couple of years, which was a really good, fun and interesting job. And I left corporate life about 4 years ago, just coming up for to try and get the balance right to pursue my passion, which is art and woodwork, which is where it all started, really. And then I've been taking it more seriously. So now I can get the balance between the consultancy and the art. And yeah, when one's a bit high, the other one's a bit low, and you can get them balanced out quite nicely. So that was always the plan and the vision. And yeah, we're trying to make it a reality, really.
Yeah, you're doing a really good job of getting it to reality. I mean, we've had a solo show, haven't we, this year, which has been fabulous, and seen your work framed up, which has been really exciting. But that was 2D artwork. That was wall hung artwork. When you first came to Pure, you were working principally, almost solely, in wood, weren't you? So was your first studio for the wood, or was it does it predate that?
Yeah, so if we go right back in time, my and grandpa were both artists. One was a wood artist, a model maker, and my gran was a 2D artist. So I guess my first studio was their studio, looking out up the valley from the farm, or out in the workshop. So as we call them, we never call them sheds, we call them workshops. So when I first got my first house, that was kind of prerequisite. It had to have a workshop. So I had a very tiny little workshop in my first house. And then when I bought my second house, it had a workshop, and you get the thread. And where I currently live, I've actually got three. So I've got this, which is kind of the studio. I've got a workshop, which is where all the woodwork happens. And then there's a garden room, which is where it's a bit more space, so you can do a bit more artwork. So that's that. But I think coming back one, I guess what I've become to realise is my studio is actually outside. It's not actually inside is where you finish things off or whatever. But that's, to me, not really my studio. It's out walking, it's out in nature, whether it be the woods for the woodwork, or whether it be the woods or the downs for inspiration, really.
And is that something, working on plein air and using the outside as your studio and your inspiration, is that something that has become apparent to you as you've transitioned from just doing wood into doing the 2D work as well? Oh, I think we may have lost Mark. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. I seem to disappear. You froze and then I disappeared. I have no idea what happened there. So sorry. So did you hear that question? I don't know whether you heard that question. I said, because you were talking about your studio being outside, and I said, has that been a recent realization that your studio is all around you? It's not just in a fixed place.
I think it's become more focused, but I've always been outdoor person. I've always enjoyed being outside. I first started because I wanted an outdoor job, so it kind of it's always been there. And being brought up around a farm as well, you're kind of used to all of it. But I guess you probably take it not for granted, but you don't appreciate it. And then obviously when you get a bit longer in the tooth, as it were, you kind of realise that actually there's quite a lot to it. But I just love being immersed, and I know Sophie's on the call today, but we've had this discussion many times about your immersive experience of just being in it. I think you really need that when you've got, especially in corporate life and things like that, you need to get out and do something. And it was probably 5 years ago I started taking a sketchbook with me, maybe 4 years ago, and just doing doodles or drawings or whatever. Yeah, but now I'm at least twice a week, if not 3 times a week, out with the sketchbook and just going for a walk and just capturing what's around you, really. And I find that, I just find it lovely. It's just a great way to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours just looking at the scenery that's around you. And we're so fortunate in Sussex with what we have, 20 minutes in any direction. I think this weekend I went to, where did I go? I went to Mount Caburn, Lewis, walked up there first thing on Saturday morning, watched the sunrise, and then Sunday morning went round to Beachy Head Lighthouse. They're both within 20 minutes walk, or 20 minutes drive. So.
I was going to say, that's a quick walk. Do you live on Beachy? No. That's yeah, it is incredible. I love being outside, and I try and make sure that's part of my day every day, that I spend some time outside. Just going to let someone else in, make sure that they are muted, so they can join us, because this is an open conversation, and we want as many people as possible to join in. So going way back, going back to, you were talking about your spending time with your grandparents in their studio. What do you remember about those days? Do you remember joining in with them or just watching them?
I've always had permission to fail, I guess, which is a really lovely sort of thing when you think about it and you look back. So my granddad's studio was just an old bedroom converted, and it was how you'd imagine an old studio, but it had a tiny little window that looked literally up the valley. So you were allowed to, go and sit there. Mum and didn't have a television, so in the evenings when you stayed there, you didn't do much else. You read a book or did some drawing or something. So yeah, we were always allowed to go up there and use paints and draw and what have you. So I guess, yeah, when you look back, it was kind of in your DNA a bit, and always there, but you didn't really fully appreciate it, I guess. And it was always a lovely place to be. And I've got quite a lot of Grand's old paintings which were never framed, and I'd love to put on an exhibition in the next couple of years with sort of some of her work and my granddad's work, and some of my work as well, and see how it actually influenced me. And I started doing that sort of before lockdown, and then I was taking my own art in direction, but it's something I really want to revisit, because yeah, it'd just be interesting to see those influences. And Gran was all about nature and skies particularly, and trees. So yeah, I guess it's kind of there.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? I was in Chichester a couple of weeks ago, and in Cherie Lubbock took me to a gallery there called, I can't remember now, it's called the can't remember. It was a very old gallery, and there was a 3-generation show there, and it was amazing. It was amazing to see the grandparents, the parents, and then the son as well. Yeah, it was an incredible thing to actually see that generational transference of skill, but also see the language that you could see. Do you see some similarities? Oh, that was a tough word for me to say. Similarities between your work and your grandparents' work?
My gran she was a good watercolorist, and was very good at skies. I'm not particularly good at watercolors, I wouldn't say. It's not really my natural form, but you can certainly see the way I draw trees is probably fairly similar, I would think. And it's fairly fluid marks and what have you. So yeah, there's a bit of a similarity there. And my granddad was he was a good sketcher, and a good model maker. So yeah, he's kind of, yeah, but you develop your own style, don't you? And I think I was trying all sorts of things for far too long, and probably, I think it was in lockdown when we dabbled with charcoal one day, and that was it. I kind of thought, hang on, I can really get on with this. With marks, and it's, yeah, I just enjoy that accidental mark making or big mark making. I think it's, yes, where I want to be. I don't think I'll ever be a very fine hyper realist artist. I don't think that's really me, but I really enjoy the expressive marks and what have you, and I'm really enjoying that direction of travel. And coming back to your earlier point, woodwork is still there, and I still love wood turning and sculpture and bits and pieces, But perhaps that's not the direction I want to go in with my professional art, and perhaps that was just my step of the journey to get to where I am now. And then how can we take that forward, still using it, but more
Well,
focused.
you were showing me a piece. So behind you, you can see what was historically your woodwork practice. So the panels with the resin and the taller pieces. Which is something that I think when we were chatting last year, you were showing us all about these pieces. But then you showed me this amazing piece you've been working on just recently that really resonates with your current practice, the black and white, responding to the landscape.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to call it a moment of clarity. So I've been kind of put it on pause for a few months as to what to do, and it wasn't quite resonating for whatever reason. And then I stumbled across it, and it's really obvious. It's everywhere around you. It's flint, and we've got these natural organic shapes. You know, there's one piece of flint with all these forms, and it's all black and white. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, there's something in this. So I went and got a lump of wood last week, and then just started to see where the forms and the shapes and what have you took you. And this is my prototype, I'll call it, with black and white, and just seeing actually how they come out. But they do look quite effective as a sculpture, but it's really based on just the lines and the fluidity of the rock.
You can really see the language from that, and the same language in your colourful pieces behind you. Almost, these are almost the drawings for the sculpture that you've just shown us, aren't they? It's amazing. It's
kind of linking, it's kind of coming all together, and I've got a couple of things here. So this was one I did at the weekend. So they're kind of smaller works from the pieces I did at the exhibition over at Valentine's back in May. And a kind of smaller works. I was just drawing. At the same time, I was doing some rather fluid work. Where are we? There we go. So these were the pinned to the wall. So yeah, it was kind of all in the same sort of session, and you can see how it's starting to all come together. And I think language is a good word.
Yeah, you're developing your own language, aren't you?
It's the bit I've always struggled with, because I like doing lots of different things. So I've always kind of struggled with that a bit.
Yeah, you can really see your language coming out now, because when you picked up that 3D piece, immediately you can see how it links to the artwork, and how you're using the same language, the same shapes, the same dynamic. And I'd immediately know if someone showed me that, I'd be, oh, is that a Mark Austin? Because it just sits so beautifully alongside your work. So I can see just the glimpses of your coffee cup behind there. You've been doing 365 days, haven't you, of drawing the coffee cup? In the journey, I know I've been torturing you in the journey to find this, to develop your own language, and it's really working.
I think fortunately. So this is my wonderful. So we decided to improve the practice. It was just pick an object.
Just pick any object.
Coffee cup's always with me, and a handmade one is particularly good because it really has lots and lots of bits and bobs that you never notice. So I've been doing a small one, but every month I've been doing a large scale piece at A2 size. So you can really see how it's kind of changing and developing. That was one of the early ones, and it's now going a bit more abstracty. It's now going a bit more looking at different shapes and forms.
Wow.
But
that is quite surreal now. It looks like the mug's taken on a life of its own. It's become part of the landscape, doesn't it?
Exactly. So so that's been rather fun. And I'm on day 234. So
well done. I'm so proud of you.
So we're getting there. So that was today's drawing. Just before I came on, I thought I'll just do a very small one in my book. But no, I think what it does is just gets you into discipline of doing something every day, which is huge. And the thing I've always struggled since leaving corporate life is because it's so rigid that then you go to total fluidity, and you need something in between. So just having that and yeah, doing something every day, I think, is really helpful. And something as simple, in inverted commas, as a coffee cup with elliptical shapes and
So
organic marks.
simple. Not.
But again, it's the downs. The downs have got this natural and what have you. And I think this one was from, yeah, this one was from Sunday as well, or Saturday, from my walk on Saturday morning. You know, and you can see
You're becoming, as I say, your mark making is becoming so pared back now, which is absolutely amazing, because you can see your own style, your own language being developed. But you've got this kind of, as I say, quite surrealist way you approach the lines as well. I'm sure Picasso would have absolutely loved it, because you have got quite a surreal hand in the way that you're making those marks. And as I say, this practice of the 365 days, I know feels like torture. And whenever I suggest it to someone, they always look at me in a very pained fashion. And they, but won't I get bored? And I always say, yes, that's the point. Because then you'll actually, the more, I think Vincent said this, the more you look, the more you see, the more you see, the more you look. And that's the whole thing, is staying curious, as I said at the beginning. You know, we're nosy, but actually curiosity is the thing. It's like, how you know, I said the minute you start putting it on the floor or turning it upside down or putting it outside or drawing the window, we know we've made a breakthrough. And you're now not just looking, you are seeing. And that's quite a different part of your brain. You're using quite a different part of your brain. It has been very rewarding to watch you over this last year develop, I have to say.
and I think from my perspective, it's yeah, it's just great. You just free up, but because I do, one of the things I would say about the walking and sketching, particularly when you've got a sprocker in your hand who doesn't want to stand still for very long, it's amazing what you can do in 30 seconds or a minute.
When you're forced to, yeah.
Capturing the, but you kind of, I don't know what it is, you just focus on the essence rather than, it really does force you to do something different. Yes,
yes, and everyone should go and have a look at your artwork that's on show in the On the Horizon exhibition, because that is the culmination, isn't it? It's like it's come right back down to the line, which is amazing. And you've got, yes, there you are. That's my favourite.
That's my original sketch from. It was a walk in April, and I walked from High and Over all the way out to the Coast Guard cottages, and then on the way back, it was the last drawing I did in my book, and it was just looking back along the Cuckmere, and you could see all these meanders, and that was kind of it. And then
you
that
just
was
get the
that
essence.
was the start of the other one that's also showing in your exhibition over Valentine's at the moment. So it all starts there, and yeah, I'm really enjoying that direction of travel, I have to say.
So your studio is almost that little sketchbook as well, isn't it? It's amazing how many places you could define as a studio.
Yeah, and if I put it a slightly different way, it's really interesting. I thought, so I've always loved a workshop, and I've always got one. Very bulky, you need lots and lots and lots of room. I have a piece of homemade charcoal, and I have that in my book. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's your other studio.
It's a very different thing, but then I'm fortunate to have spaces like this where you can, you know, if you want to. And now and these are pieces that we showed. I can put them on the wall to remind myself of how far I've come, or whatever. So I think, you know, very fortunate to have a formal space.
Is that important, to be able to hang your own work in your own space, do you think?
That's a very good question. I think it's nice to see how far you've come. So the two on the back wall were two of my, I don't do many oils, but they were kind of my first couple of oils I did a couple of years ago. And you think, well, I'll just have them on there. I'm not afraid of colour. I quite like colour. But yeah, just to see how far you've come. And then you look at the more simplistic charcoals or what have you on the wall, and you can see, you know, how you've come. So I think that's more interested in that for my own journey rather than, yeah, it's obviously proud to have something on the wall of that standard, but
Do you
Yeah,
ever think about sharing your studio space with anyone else, or showing anyone else's work there?
so this is probably the biggest question. So you've got to know me. I love collaborating
Yeah,
always, and when I first left corporate life, I did take out a massive studio and a workshop, and it was just too big, and it went all wrong. So I closed it, and it was the right decision to do. But I would love to have a collaborative space with 2 or 3 that you could just go and use it whenever you wanted to. And I do have an office just in town, which is a great little space. But there's a bigger office coming up in the new year, and I'd love to be able to have that where people who haven't got fortunate to have a space could, come and use it for an hour or two, and if they wanted to.
it's like artist
Um,
hot desking.
exactly, I think
That's a concept, isn't it?
I think that's really important. I'm quite privileged to have this space, and you don't want to take it for granted. But yeah, I think I would love to do that and have a collaborative space, because you do bounce off each other. And it's the same with my consultancy work. I'm probably on Teams 4 hours a day in that world, not necessarily on a task, but just collaborating and sharing and working out how you're going to do stuff. So I think it's really important to, at the end of the day, we all need people.
Yeah. So that's the next step. That's the aspiration, is it, to have a joint studio space?
Yeah, I think so. I've talked about it for many years, and you have to go on a journey when the right time is, rather than just because you've got a great idea. That doesn't mean the right time. And I feel probably in the next sort of, I don't know, 18 months to 2 years, it probably will be right for me personally, but also perhaps right timing as well. And I did set this aspiration of being a professional artist by 50, so I've still got 2 and a bit years to go. So
well, you're certainly getting there. You're nearly there now, aren't you? With developing your language and finding your place and getting into your flow.
Yeah, that's definitely improved.
You talked a lot about your corporate work, and you're still doing that. How easy do you find that transition to get into flow as an artist then?
Yeah, so I think the other thing is I'm used to doing lots of different things at once, and always have done. So I don't find that particularly difficult. But I do find sometimes with the art that if I could go out there for 8 hours every day, I might not get where I need to be. But by going out for a walk for a couple of hours, and then something captures, like literally the bit of flint, I'm staring at it going, hang on, it's just staring at me. There's a reason why I haven't been in the workshop for 2 months doing anything. Yeah, so I think then you get into a kind of a flow and a pattern. And Saturday night was one of those, and ended up doing 4 or 5 hours of drawing and painting and sketching. And then other days you might not do any for a week or 2, and I think that's the beauty. It's the beauty, but and also we all need to earn a living as well. So getting the balance right between all of this stuff, I think, is the important bit. So for me it's working. I would like to have more towards the 2 days a week of art and 3 days of consultancy, and tapering back. But I think, as we all know, we're all realists. We have to ebb and flow as the work is available.
Yeah, that's how life goes, isn't it? And I know you had a beautiful space at the Birchwood area in Flimwell, and now you've moved away from that. But did you find that inspiring, being in the woods as someone who loves wood?
Yeah, so very interesting. It was a absolutely fabulous space in a lovely area, but there was some things that weren't quite right either. Which is hard to put your finger on, but it was a lovely space. And maybe it's meant to be. I've got this in the short term. I've got this great one at home, and it means I can be more flexible around the dog. And bless her, Lexi, she's made a big difference as well, getting out and about.
Yeah, dogs make us go outside. I know I have to go out and walk the dog every day, and it's really healthy, isn't it? It's a healthy thing.
For all sorts.
So if anyone who is listening has got any questions, do you want to put them in the chat bar at the side, type your messages in, and then I will invite you to ask your question to Mark if anyone's got any questions. But I've really thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you, Mark, and this is, I think, the second or the third time that we've had one of these chats.
I think the first time was in edition 2. I want to say.
Is it edition 2?
A long
We're in
time
edition 4 now. It's mad. And we've decided that edition 5 is going to be all about en plein air, because so far that's what everyone talks about, is the you know, being outside. So I think that's really exciting.
I think it's interesting for me just to see and reflect on how my headspace is as an artist, rather than everything else. You know, it's I've moved a long way in my headspace and where my direction of travel is. I'd have a go at anything, and I still will do, but I think I've stumbled across my my path.
I think it's
I'm
interesting.
Sure.
I think if you were to listen back to your interview in the first one and then listen to this one now, I think you would see such a difference. I can see such a difference in you, and you're now very much more an artist. Whereas when Sophie's just said, I love how you've developed. When I interviewed the first time, you were a businessman aspiring to be an artist, running very much a corporate, running a business. Whereas now you're very much embodying an artist. When I meet you, you're very much an artist. And the thing that really resonates with me is that how much you talk about how important your well-being is, which is, I think that's one of the conversations I have a lot with artists these days, is you know, our well-being is really important, to be in alignment with yourself, making sure, you know, they talk about having your body and your spine in alignment so you can walk properly and be healthy and not damage your hips. But actually you have to have your whole self in alignment, don't you? Otherwise you will hurt yourself and you will make yourself unwell. And
Indeed.
now you are someone who seems so in alignment with yourself now compared to when I first spoke to you. It's very pleasing to see.
100%. And you know, everyone has been very supportive and helpful as well. And I think, you know, that being part of something, I said I've always struggled with the bit out of corporate life, with being on your own. I've always struggled with that bit because I'm used to being collaborative with lots and lots of people every day. So yeah, that's helpful as well. And yeah, just thinking about it more professionally rather than I'm a decent drawer.
Yeah, I think the community, having a community around you really, really does make such a difference. Having a group of people that you know that are there, they've got your back and they'll work with you and they'll chat to you and everything. And yeah, it's definitely made a difference to me. I'm absolutely. Edith's asking, are you? No, sorry, Carol, not Edith. Carol was asking, are you using charcoal? And I know when you did the workshop, you showed us you'd made your own charcoal. There we go, yes. Carol. There is the charcoal.
So yeah, Carol, so I don't know, probably 18 months ago, I had all this offcuts of wood left in the thing, and I always have a fire pit. So I thought I'm going to make my own charcoal because I just chopped down a willow tree. So it's a contorted willow, so I make my own charcoal from the contorted willow tree, which is great fun. With the offcuts of the wood, leave it in the fire pit, and some toasted marshmallows or something. And at the end of it, we've got something we can take out with us. So yes, that's why I'm really enjoying the charcoal. A, because I make it myself, but B, it's just something. It's natural. It's organic. It just, I don't know, something about it.
Yeah, and I know when you did the workshop at Valentine's, everyone who attended that workshop, they like literally landed on that charcoal as if it was pure gold. They were like, where's the charcoal? Can I use some of your charcoal? And it's just an amazing, beautiful thing to be able to use. And it's so right for your practice, because your practice started with wood, didn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll always be there. I don't think I'll ever lose it. And, you know, I spoke many times, but I make these wooden hearts for tree love, and that's great. And every one that's sold, you know, a tree in the Amazon's planted. So at least you're doing something with reclaimed wood that was going to go somewhere, and you do something else. So it'll always be there. I'm sure of that. But where the direction goes, I think this might just have given me
I am so
where
excited. I am so excited. I can see those huge as well. I can see not just like little ones like that, but like really big ones. And I love the black and white. This has really become your thing. But I could also see them very colourful as well, because you've got that other side of your work. And the colour palette, you've got a very distinct colour palette that you always are drawn to. That's
I think
very clear colours.
I think the other thing is I did a bit of reading on Henry Moore last year, and Henry Moore, you go there, it's all
I was
conventional.
thinking, as soon as you showed it to me, I was thinking Henry Moore. They are amazing, but they're not. They're Mark Austin. They're not a
Exactly.
copy. They are yours. They're your idea, and they're going to sit within your practice. It's
Exactly.
amazing. So, does anyone else have any other questions for Mark while we're just wrapping up our conversation here? I think everyone's just like really enjoyed seeing you develop and seeing how your work has come on.
Yeah, and thank you for the lovely comments, Sophie and Carol. It's much appreciated. And I think that probably gives you a bigger boost than anything is when fellow artists make a comment.
Yeah. You've got Instagram, haven't you? You use Instagram.
Indeed, yeah.
Do you find that a useful tool for getting kind of almost collaborating with your audience to see what they have to say? Is that another studio in there? Instagram studio.
I think social media is an incredible force, and if it's used in the right way, and I think I used it very, very effectively in my corporate life 5 or 6 years ago when nobody was using it. We used it very effectively to let people know what we were doing. I think the last 2 or 3 years, it's probably gone in a slightly different direction. It's now got to the point that they've got to make money, and therefore advertising and so on. But I still think you can, really be supportive, and I've always found that if you find I'm following all the black and white artists now, which I would have never done probably 18 months ago, and then you just bounce off each other, and you can just see people's styles and marks and all that sort of stuff. And I think, yeah, that gives you a boost. And when somebody likes one of your work who is an artist in that field, and you think, okay, well, I'm heading in the right direction. Yeah, so I think it is an incredible force for good, and yeah, we've just got to use it that way.
That's another community, isn't it? Like, as you said, you're following the black and white artists, those that work in black and white and graphite and what have you. That's just another community, and that's absolutely amazing to join another community and feed off that collective energy. The great thing about having a studio is that you have your own space. The great thing about coming out of your studio is that you join, in with community activity.
And I said I'm very, very privileged and lucky to have a lovely space, and yeah, just use it. But when it's there, you can use it properly to your advantage. And so I just thought about this yesterday, and the day before, and I thought, well, I've got all the bits. They're in the cupboard or they're hanging. I'm going to put them all up on the wall, and I'm going to remind myself how far I've come. And yeah, that's what you can do, isn't it?
You really have. As I say, you are a different person to the person I interviewed the first time, and that's so rewarding to see, Mark. And I'm really excited to see where this is going to go, because it's a real adventure, and you really are making your own. Yeah, you're making your own thing that's very unique. So I can't wait to come and see your space in Hailsham, which I'm going to do in a couple of weeks' time. I can come and see the big space, and I can tell everyone about it. Don't worry, we're going to have artist hot easeling. They can't hot desk, they'll have to hot easel. Hot easel or hot table.
I think we have to be. Yeah, we should. If we got those spaces, why wouldn't you? If if they're at your own home, that's one thing. But if it's another space, why wouldn't you?
Include others.
Come and be part of it.
Yeah.
And my favourite one of the coffee cup is the joint sketch, which I've still got here.
Oh right.
Peter and Fran and everybody.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Have you got that there to show everybody? We did a joint sketch, didn't we? That's true.
Yeah, it is. This is my favourite, and Peter he drew a face, and Fran chipped in.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was at the workshop, wasn't it?
Yeah. So for me, that's.
Did they all sign it on the back?
Peter did. I can't remember who else did.
Is the little face down the bottom end, is that Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he signed it on the front. Look at that. That's amazing, isn't it?
So
That's the joy, isn't it, of working with other people. And actually Peter, who runs New Art Gallery in Eastbourne, he sold one of your charcoals, didn't he?
he has the last couple of weeks, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He did a black and white exhibition. And yeah, I've got a some of my pieces will be at Gallery North in December and January for their Christmas show, and obviously currently showing over at Valentine's as well.
Yeah, Valentine's and on Artsy. Yeah, we're working closely with Artsy, so hopefully we're getting very good views, and we just need lots of people to follow us on Artsy. Isn't it the standard call for call to action? Follow us.
I think
follow us on every platform.
I think if you had said to me 2 years ago that I'd have done 5 professional exhibitions in something which wasn't what I started in, I probably wouldn't have. I don't know, wouldn't have believed you, but I thought it might have been a stretch. But that's a reality, and you know, I'm certainly learned a lot from it, and I feel like I'm heading in the right direction, and I've got a direction of travel, which is yeah, quite exciting.
Yeah, as I say, I'm very excited to see where you're going, and that's the thing. We have to dream big and imagine the very, very best of outcomes, don't we? And then the only time you know what you've done is to look back and see where you've come from, and that's it. And it's like, whoa. And yeah, you just have to show up, take action, and be brave, and just keep showing up and being brave, I think, is the thing, isn't it, for all of us? Thank you so much, Mark. It's been absolutely fascinating. I've really, really enjoyed chatting to you again. And let's do this again. Let's make a date for this in about 3 years' time and see where you are as you reach your 50 and, you know, full-time artist ambition. It'll be very interesting to see. It's going to be in a swanky Hauser and Worth gallery somewhere.
I've still got my original piece of paper where I wrote my plan on when I was 40. So I've still got it.
Well, I think that needs to be framed and hung up, because that's it. Our brain doesn't know what's real and imagined. So as long as you keep reading it, your brain will believe it. Yeah. And you have to have a goal. I think when I talk to people, the one thing that comes through so frequently is those people that have got a stretching goal, have got an ambition, will achieve it, often overachieve it. It's the people who don't really know and haven't really set a target for themselves, and then they don't get there because they have got nothing to kind of head for. And you had something very clear to head for. So yeah, well done. Doing really well. You really, I mean, it is amazing. It is incredible. And the new sculpture, I'm really, truly excited about. Really fabulous. When I saw that first single line, I was like, oh my Lord, we've hit it. We've got there. And because you know me, I don't like to tell you what to do. I just like to hold your hand and ask you leading questions, and hopefully you'll, you know, find your own path. Because otherwise there'll just be loads of clones of me. That's rubbish. No one wants that in their life. No one needs loads of me.
And thank you for everyone for joining, because
yeah,
to listen to it. So it's been
yeah. Thank you everyone who's joined. Yeah, it's been fab. And what's going to happen now is we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much. And then we'll upload this recording to YouTube, and then everyone will be able to watch it afterwards as well. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you especially to Mark, who's now replying to everyone. It's great. It was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And I look forward to more of these as we go forward. I think Carol's next, and hopefully lots of you will join Carol's and ask questions, and yeah, just join in with the conversation. Thank you, Mark, very much. Really enjoyed it. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.